It just started.
I'm Brooke Avery.
I'm Catherine Gorman.
Elena, brush your hair.
I'm Holly Gibson.
And I'm Sarah Mortensen.
And we are talking about visual impairments. And what visual impairment is described as is any kind of vision loss. Someone who cannot see at all or someone who has partial vision loss. And some are totally blind, others have what is called legal blindness. The kinds of visual impairments are legal blindness, which is a level of vision loss that has been legally defined to determine eligibility for benefits. In the United States, this refers to medically diagnosed central visual acuity of 20/200 or less in the better eye with the best possible correction. Albinism is another kind that people with albinism often have low vision, including severe light and glare sensitivity. Albinism occurs in one person in 17,000 in the United States. Cataracts are responsible for 50% of the world's blindness. Over 20 million people. Cataracts are clouding of the lens of the eye that causes light to be diffused as it centers the eye, impacting the clarity of visual image. And astigmatism. It is the most common eye visual impairment in the United States, and it just causes that one eye or both eyes have a very blurry or distorted vision or view.
So for the students who suffer from visual impairments, it can be any student that has limitations of the visual function in one eye or both eyes or the visual system in general. And those are the students that are considered visually impaired. It affects over 10 million Americans of all ages that suffer from certain types of visual impairments. So in addition to everything that was listed in the what, students suffer loss of vision acuity, inability to see clearly. They suffer blindness or partial blindness, loss of vision field, so some students just can't see as widely. Photophobia, students that have inability to look at light. Diplopia, which is double vision for some students. Visual distortion, or some students suffer a combination of these things.
Okay, so for the diagnosis, ophthalmologists, optometrists, pediatricians, and other specialists are able to diagnose visual impairments. And then how it's diagnosed is a student or child will see one of those specialists, and they will be given many tests with their eye, the different parts of the test to see if their eyes are developing. And these tests can start as early as birth, depending on the family history and if the child was born prematurely, and they recommend as early as 6 months getting them checked just to make sure they're developing properly. And then some adaptations that teachers can make is having assistive technology, audiobooks, Braille, and then hands-on learning.
So some of the school options for students who are blind is many of them do, or with visual impairments, many of them do participate in the general ed classrooms, and some students will only require glasses and contacts, while some children are only blind in one eye. And these students typically easily adapt into general ed classrooms with only a few accommodations. But all students who have limited vision and blindness can still participate in general ed classrooms with a well-planned IEP, with assistive technology and a paraeducator. There's also schools specifically for the blind, and some of them are also for the deaf and blind. And many students will choose to attend these schools because there's not very many of them per state, typically just 2. sometimes a few more. They offer dorms so that students who live further away can attend these highly specialized schools. And then living away from home helps them learn to be more independent than they might otherwise be if they lived at home with family. These state-funded schools are offered at no cost to families and students, and teachers are trained in the assistive technology and specific teaching strategies for those with visual impairments. Some of the specific tools that that blind and visually impaired students will use is one of them is called a personal digital assistant. It's basically a note taker where students can type their notes that they hear during a lesson and then read those notes again because it will print that out in Braille, or they can listen to a recording. Teachers should make certain that lighting is good so that students with impairments can easily see materials, and they should be given preferential seating in the classroom. To ease their communication with others, some students who are deaf and blind use ACC devices, and it's basically a computer with pictures where they can type or they can touch what their need is. And these have accommodations for the deaf and blind. Braille, of course, can be used to read others' words. There's computers that now have refreshable Braille technology for printing pages from the internet, and audio technology. But it was stressed that audio technology should not replace the practice that students who are blind need in becoming proficient in Braille. And then finally, for life after school, high school students must have a transposition plan as part of their IEP. Visually impaired students should participate in this IEP to make their long-term goals and dreams known. Pretty much all colleges offer services for the blind and visually impaired. And recently, there was a Black blind deaf woman who graduated from Harvard Law School, and she was the first ever to do so. So these impairments don't really have to be something that hinders students, that all students, she proves, are capable of learning and excelling in their lives.